So, talking about how and why I decided that it was a good idea to leave the comfort of my little 100 square foot suite in a traditional suite system and open the life of Riley. Well, the first word that comes to mind is delusional. It all goes back to this salon I worked at several years ago called Senses New York. Senses had this really unique vibe. And basically, when you came off the elevator, you came at the exact middle of the space. Reception met you right in front, and if you went to the right, you had manicure, pedicure, and you had a whole bunch of spa rooms, and you had a small little kitchenette. And if you went to the left, you had a fully wide open salon floor with waiting area and shampoo bank and whatever. But anyway, it kind of like was split in half. I grew into the stylist I am at Senses. I put together a creative team and led a team doing photo shoots monthly. We literally did a concept a month. It was intense, but it was amazing. There was just that sense of creativity and collaboration and team that when Senses closed abruptly, I was right at the height. Like I was really hitting my stride. I had already managed to get NAHA recognized, and I was doing a collection or two a year, and I had just gotten published for the first time. American Salon did a spread on me, and the word got out that I was looking for a new salon. I literally fielded 13 different offers, which was insane. But one of the things that I really was looking for was that sense of team. And one of the things that made the team kind of have this like teeny vibe was that kitchenette. It was just long enough to sit three very small, narrow, teeny tiny person-ass stools at on one side, and on the other side our coffee pot would sit there, and we had a water machine, and we always had lemon water and cucumber water. Cucumber water was a hit. The weirdest thing ever. Sounds totally freaky, but it's actually like very refreshing. But every Saturday, at the end of the day, nobody would leave. Everybody would gather, slowly but surely trickling in toward that little kitchenette bar. And somebody would start pouring the wine that we had for the clients. And we'd just sit around and share our week with each other. And it was just, I don't know, it's the reason that a bar is so special, because it's a gathering place for people. When I lost that, I wanted it back in such a real way that these little seeds were planted in my brain. So fast forward, and I've now been through 2 additional traditional salons trying desperately to find some version of recapturing what Senses had, and it was absolutely hell on earth. I was so sick. I was so sick. I was going through my whole thyroid diagnosis thing. I had literally put on 60 pounds in 10 months. It was a nightmare. And I hit this moment of, if this is what doing this job looks like, then I don't think I want to do this anymore. If you can't do it and love it, then what's the point? So I finally had this moment where I was like, well, there is one thing that is true of going out on my own, and that is that I cannot fuck it up any worse than anybody else. That was the last lesson I had to learn. When I say that, I was like, it doesn't mean that everybody else is fucking up. It just means that sometimes you reach a point in your life where it doesn't really matter how well somebody else might be able to do it. You need to be in control of your own reality. And I hit that moment where it didn't really matter if I messed it up, because I knew I could fix it. I went to the Salons by JC Suites, and I committed to a space that would not be available until September. This was in May. I immediately set about starting to plan my suite. Mind you, never, ever in my mind at that point in time was a cohesive thought around, I want to own a very large space. But I officially opened up my own tiny little corner of the earth, hung out my shingle, October of 2018. So October of 2019, we celebrated my first year. Everything was going fantastically. I was making more money than I ever had. My clients were happier than they ever were. Everything was going incredibly well. I went to New Hampshire with 2 models, did a shoot where I did literally at that point in my career the best color work of my life. Came back certain I was going to wipe the floor with that particular competition, and 2 weeks later we were in lockdown for COVID. And all I could think was, it's clear that having all my eggs in one basket is not working. So diversify became one of my keywords. The therapist I was seeing at the time said one thing to me that literally saved my entire reality. And she said, I think we're at a moment where you have to just put aside your ethics and your morals and your platitudes, and you just have to survive this. Just keep the business alive. I loaded up my suite. I moved everything out on a Friday. I started that Friday night, and by Monday, I launched my very own e-commerce space. I had never done that before, but I worked 24/7, 365 for 4 days, and I sold everything. I made t-shirts, I made hats, I sold consultations. I had found a color delivery system that was actually like still allowed me to be the professional and wasn't giving away like the code of ethics. And I made friends with DocuSign, and I created a liability release that everybody that bought color from me had to sign first because I'm a freak about contracts. And I saved myself. But when I realized I couldn't look forward and predict, what I chose to do was look back. And in looking back, I was re-educated on the pandemic that happened in 1915, 14, 16. Whatever. And I started looking at how they came out of that. What did it look like when we as a country 100 years ago came out of a pandemic? And so 1916, 1917, we're climbing and we're crawling and we're figuring it out, but we've been so repressed that creative expression starts to really rear its head and people just want to celebrate. And guess what happened after that? The Roaring 20s. When I saw that within 4 years of being locked down, we were thriving in a way and people were living their best lives in a way that it was such an overcorrection that then prohibition happened, I knew there was opportunity here. So this idea started to form that if I had a space, a multifaceted lifestyle space that not only served my industry and allowed misplaced stylists to have a home, but also was a multi-purposed artistic space so that all of the arts that I love would have some place to potentially function. And it had a bar that served coffee during the day and alcohol in the afternoon evening hours, aka our speakeasy. And then because the space was so multifaceted, we had shared workspace so that people could come and work remotely because everybody's working remotely. A, it not only answers a lot of the points of pain of the clients that are asking me for these things post, but B, my ability to work will never be taken away. At some point, every single aspect, one of these profit streams is going to stay open if we ever hit a moment where something like this would ever happen again. On top of that, I desperately still craved team and community and creative collaborative work. And 2 years into the Life of Riley at this point, we are now in September, I officially signed the lease for the Life of Riley, September 22nd of 2022. I have all of those things. We have a bar where people hang out around. We have a team that collaborates and works together. It's not the same, but it was never supposed to be the same. The seeds of inspiration blossom and they look different. So that's the story. How it became called The Life of Riley, that's the next story. What we stand in right now was the product of about 7 or 8 years of my brain solving problems in my life and trying to help solve problems in other people's lives as well. My goal now with The Life of Riley is to better as many other humans' realities as I possibly can through this space and what I hope it will grow into. So fingers crossed.